Hello, everyone, and welcome to the What is God podcast. I'm Shifra Bloom, your hostess. And on this podcast, I ask people from all walks of life what their answer is to the question, what and where is God, and what does it have to do with me? And so today I have my friend and colleague, Kevin Crenshaw, on the line with us. And Kevin is a love and relationships coach. And so he brings a very special and unique perspective to this conversation. And really, I just want to dive right in and hear from you, Kevin. How would you answer this question of what and where is God and what does it have to do with me?
First off, I just love how fast we're gonna go deep on this and how deep the question is itself. It's very you, Shifra. So I love that.
Let's just go straight to it.
Yeah.
And by the way,
And
too, feel free, like as you give your answer to the question, I shared that you're a love and relationships coach, you're in Austin, Texas, but give us some context on how you've come to your answer and how you've evolved so that we know like the lens through which you're coming from. So I want to hear not only your answer, but any story that you have around it, and just so that we can get to know who is Kevin. You work with love, you work with relationships, and you work with the heart. You're called the heart guy, right? And so um, it's special and important for me that listeners can have an idea of, not only your answer, but how you got to it and the lens that you're coming through.
that's awesome. So I'll give my answer to the question, and it kind of leaves an opening. I'll share the lens that I'm viewing that
Beautiful,
through.
yes.
Um, there's a perspective that we could say it's like art. Life, I feel, is like art. And if I have this pin, I see one side of it, you see another side of it, somebody else can see a different perspective of it. It's still the same pin. And I hold two really big perspectives that God is everything and everywhere, and literally the interconnected energy that creates and is all of creation and all of earth and everything. And quite literally, it's all of it. And then I also hold another lens that there is a higher power, not that stuff that has created the stuff and is a lot more in alignment with some of the worldly religions on, you could say, deities or higher powers, or almost like an entity outside of the thing.
Hmm.
And part of the perspective that I have of why that is having encounters with, call it angels, Jesus, demons in my own personal life, and also talking with other people. Once you have an encounter like that, it kind of changes your perspective on life. And so, just to give you a little bit of background on my lens, I grew up evangelical Christian. I went to a Christian school, grew up in Memphis, Tennessee, kind of in the Bible Belt. And so church was, a regular occurrence. But even while I was going to church, and even though I was in a Christian school growing up, remember reading the Bible and taking Bible classes and stuff like that, and not really, I don't know, I just had this unbiased view of it all. It was just kind of like, oh, okay, cool, that's that story. Not like, oh, that actually happened. It was just like I was observing what was going on even at a young age and just kind of going, okay, like, is that actually true? And kind of questioning it. And ironically, the school that I went to taught us to question the Bible to
Hmm.
defend certain points and um, basically have our own free will thinking instead of just like, this is how it is. So I'm really grateful for that. Um, and I got into personal development and spirituality, I guess, pretty early in my late teens, early 20s. And there was an in that was my that into, I guess you could say, the encounters that I had. Because when I did go to my first personal development event, it was with a woman named Danny Johnson, and she ties in religion to personal development, more so Christianity.
Mhm.
And in that experience, with a few hundred people, I had a visceral encounter with an angel myself.
Wow.
Um, And I've seen multiple times in my own life, like exorcisms, you could say, demons coming out of people and that whole thing. And so when you have that's when I was like, okay, there might be something real to this. And I kind of became an atheist, I guess. I just didn't believe in anything. I got super into science after I had a near-death experience. I overdosed on San Pedro by accident and had enough for 30 people. Again, it was by accident and it was expanded in my stomach. I was high for 3 days and psychotic for a month afterwards. And in that experience, to bring myself back, I just got super into like scientific and grounded. It was like,
Mm.
what can I see? And that's how I decipher what's real or not. Because I was hearing voices, I was seeing things. I was not well physically, and I was trying to mindset my way out of it. And I was just like, I'm not well physically. I need to get well physically, and all this other stuff will take care of itself. So I developed. That's when I became trauma informed. I worked with a mentor of mine who is just trauma expert and helped me in healing that in my body, and then also a functional medicine doctor and everything. And that was more recently, 3 years ago. And so I'm coming out of that season, regulated myself, kind of saved, if you will, and looking back at my life, just going, okay, every time I try to do things my way, it doesn't work out. And every time I just throw my hands up and surrender and say, all right, God, but like, what do you want for me? It's always beautiful. It always works. Um, and so that is what it has to do with me is there's a relationship, whether it's with this stuff, the interconnectedness of everything. You can call it quantum physics, you can call it God, uh, and and or I'm still kind of in my own discovery there of a higher power
Yeah.
that is an entity outside of the stuff. Um,
Mm.
and I went down the rabbit hole of like I'm God. I went down the rabbit hole of like I'm God because I think people can fall into that because we can't impose our will onto the stuff. And I mean stuff, I mean energy, I mean emotion, I mean physical stuff, right? Think quantum physics. We can impose our will onto it. And then there's also this other thing that can impose its will onto it. So the stuff itself, again, perspective. Everything's God. Okay, well, that's one perspective. I'm God. That's definitely one perspective, depending on where you are in your consciousness. Then there is a God. And what that is, I think, depends on your perspective that you have on it. And what it has to do with you is that, I come from a Christian background, so I'm just going to use that as is heaven or hell. And a lot of, in my opinion, the biblical teachings aren't, it could be and or, but a lot of them aren't actually true events. They're metaphors for internal dynamics.
Mm.
Um, how I've come to see it. Again, it's all perspective. Yes, the Moses could have parted the Red Sea, probably happened, probably find evidence for it, and that can also be a uh inner world of like, can you part your own inner Red Sea from an attack of your own self to save yourself to go into a new life? Like I could go deep down the rabbit hole on that. Me and my friends have been talking
Mind
about it.
blown moment. It's just like you're teasing me for like going in and I'm like, it's been 5 minutes. We talked about angels and demons and near death experiences and parting of the Red Sea, but keep going, keep going.
Yeah, yeah. And then it's like, okay, again, using the Bible, you know, like there's just so much in the Bible that you can use it as relation to inner parts and like parts work. Um,
Explain parts work, please.
Parts work. There are, have you ever said like, oh, there's a part of me that just doesn't vibe with this, or there's a part of me that's scared. Okay, well, what part is that? Is that your inner child? Is that we have tons of parts,
Yeah.
think personalities, if you will, almost. And think parts work could be a part of you is like, yeah, I'm never gonna abandon you, I'm never gonna leave you, and that night it does
Mm.
happen to Jesus, right? And Jesus was the ultimate shadow worker. He um forgave those who were abandoned. He brought home those who were outcast, and he
Mm.
made family out of everybody. And that
Mm.
really is what love, the essence of love and shadow work is.
Mm.
And parts work. Can you love the part of you that's shameful? Can you love the part of you that you outcast because of the leprosy, or that it's not okay and it's shame,
Mhm.
right? So he was a perfect example in that regard. And then also, like, I've read the Magdalene manuscript, which talks about like um, Mary and how Jesus got his like powers of essentially transcending death um, through tantra and other things like that. And so that could that be true? Maybe, I don't know. But again, it's all a perspective.
Okay. Okay. So quick recap because this is just such a deep topic. Yeah, well, I love having deep conversations and you have definitely you have definitely shown up for your part of it.
Awesome.
We've gone I love this analogy of life as art and the emphasis on perspective and this dichotomy of God as everything, as the stuff, and also the creator of the stuff. I think there's a lot of ways to feel into that. And then this encounter that you had with an angel, which I'm hoping you'll share more about in a minute. And it's interesting because you grew up more evangelical Christian. I grew up Jewish, and it's interesting because when you said this thing of, well, God is everything and God is also beyond everything and created everything, it reminded me of the quintessential Jewish prayer, which is the Shema, which is essentially an announcement that God is one. um it's Shema Yisrael Adonai Elokeinu Adonai Echad, um which is basically saying that, hear, listen, Israel, which I'll talk about what that means in a second. Um, the that the It's a specific word for God, which I interpret to mean the infinite life force that animates all of creation is our God, and God that is one. And so when you were saying your answer, it reminded me of the Shema. And then when you were saying you had this literal encounter with an angel, it reminded me of how Jacob got the name Israel, which is the original introduction of that word. Israel, what is Israel? Now it means many other things. It means a nation, it means a people, it means a tribe, whatever. But originally it was this name that Jacob was given after he had an encounter with an angel and wrestled with it. And so I think of it when, hero Israel, it's listen, you who wrestles with angels, listen, you who wants to know God. That which animates everything is God, and God is one. So that's what came to mind for me as you were speaking. And I love finding the connections in this conversation, which has as many perspectives as there are people, and probably more, actually, for sure, more, because we hold many different opinions and beliefs, even at one moment in time about this conversation. Um, and then, yeah, this conversation about parts work and these how we connect to these stories in the Bible as, perhaps they were literally true, perhaps they're metaphorically true, and regardless, how they can be teaching stories for us to relate to. And I did not know about that near-death experience either that you just shared about. So I'm like, we could dive in a lot of different directions. If there's something
Yeah.
that you're feeling like eager to talk about, please go that way. Otherwise, I'm curious what this encounter with the angel was like.
Yeah, definitely want to. I'll circle around to that. I'll share about the near death a little bit more because I had an encounter with, you could say, a demon, demonic energies, dark
Okay, so we'll
energies.
start with demons and then we'll go to angels.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so actually, I'm going to go to my eighth grade Bible teacher.
Okay.
Miss Moore was her name. This crazy, awesome, older lady, and she would share a story about when she saw a demon, like literally somebody possessed climbing on a wall, like movie type crazy. She saw it in person, and um, I believed her. Some of the kids didn't. I was like, I think she's telling the truth.
Whoa.
And it always got me, really curious about this type of thing. And then, yeah, in my near death, and I had had um I don't know. I always get chills when there's talk of exorcisms or videos of it, or even in the movies. And I'm just like,
Hmm.
something in my spirit knows that's true, or I just am moved by the amount of emotion or the amount of release that's happening. I don't know. But and so I had a San Pedro, which is a plant medicine. I had sat 7 times before. This was going to be my eighth sitting. Previously, it was always with a shaman, multi-generational shaman. This time it was with somebody who was inexperienced in the work, and I just trusted them. And it was just me and this other person. They didn't know the dosage, and I had way too much because it hit me like a weed brownie. It was like, I don't feel anything. I don't feel anything. I don't feel anything. I'll take more, and then bam.
Oh.
And I've talked with other people who've had near-death experiences where there's, like a tunnel and you feel like you're going into another place. And I had this metacognition, self-awareness, so it was like, oh fuck, I know what this is. Like I've got a mission on Earth. I this is not it. No. And I like decided to come back. And that
Oh,
was
I
a
got
very
chills
visceral
there.
experience. That was a very visceral experience, coming back because I was blasted. I was so high. And um there was a time towards the end of the trip where I was kind of relaxing, or the peak of it, I guess I should say, because I was high for 3 days, but I was relaxing and getting some really gruesome imagery in my head. And then I felt like there was a knife that went into my skull. There was like a knife like piercing my skull, and I was like, "Why am I allowing this? This is weird. What's happening?" And then my human became aware, and I freaked out. And the woman who was serving me was like massaging my head at the time, and I like pushed her away, freaking out, going, "What the heck?" She's like, "It's just me. It's just me. It's just me. Nothing." And I'm like reaching in the back of my head. I'm like, "Oh, okay, I'm good." I had neck pain for like a year and a half, and it wouldn't go away. I had psychics tell me that it looked like there was broken glass in my neck in that exact same spot. And I eventually found another light worker shaman who did some sound healing on me and removed what he called a probe from my neck. And he was like, "Oh yeah, something was like implanted into you, and I'm not going to scare you, but it was a very ancient, sophisticated dark energy. So you don't need." He's like, "I'm not going to tell you anymore because you don't need to dive into all this stuff, but you're good now." And my neck was sore for like 4 or 5 days afterwards, and it was red from when he did it, like almost like I had surgery. And
Yeah.
in a way, I had some sense of psychic surgery, but um, I equate that was a demon or some energy. He said it's basically like, negative energy feeds on negative energy, so it gets hungry. It's like boom, oh, there's Kevin, and I'm just going to push his buttons, and he's going to feel worry or whatever, and then I'm going to feed off of that. And so I was essentially targeted, in an energetic sense that way. And I really feel it was from a demon. I've had encounters as a child, even,
Mhm.
waking up, and I wouldn't say ghosts, I would say literal demons, like something in the corner, and I'm just filled with terror knowing something is in the room with me.
Mhm.
And I didn't watch scary movies growing up or anything like that. So I
Right.
tended to stay away from all that stuff. So
I stayed
to,
away too. Those
that
of
was
us
that
who
was my
see beyond the
experience.
veil sometimes don't need extra input.
Yeah. Yep. No,
We're
I'm good.
good.
Um, and so that was, my encounter with that stuff. I've seen what you could call an exorcism, except um, not necessarily in person, just in videos. And so, um, to me, it's real stuff,
Yeah.
even though it's unseen. And then with the angel,
Well, let's actually, do you mind if we pause and
yeah,
I'll do a
yeah,
little recap of this section because
yeah,
this was big, and then we'll move into angels. First of all, I really appreciate you sharing all of this, and this gets us into, yeah, the paranormal and the unusual. However, it's like you said, there's perspective to it, and for those who experience it, it's very real. And so this idea of, so there's a few things that what you shared made me think of. One is that you said my human, and I wanted to highlight that in our conversation, and for listeners, sometimes I'll say my avatar, meaning Shifra. And I like how you said my human, meaning this animal human part of me, which is, I mean, I actually would like for you to elaborate on what you mean by that.
Um, just like in Christian faith, there's the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. That's 3 dimensions deep. I feel like what's called person is also 3 levels deep. You have um, body, mind, and spirit.
Mm,
And so when I refer to my human, I'm referring to the body most of the time, the animalistic part of us.
mhm.
Um, yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah, that's so cool. And I love that way of understanding who we are. That's part of the what does it have to do with me piece of this conversation, and this idea that we are both matter and spirit. And that's what makes a human being so unique and special. And we can be led by more of just our matter and our human, as you're calling it, or our animal, perhaps. Or we could, see how do we get the animal and the spiritual, the soul, to work together to create a truly powerful being here on earth. And that brought me to the second thing that what you shared made me think of, which was this idea of being able to, on the other end of the spectrum, you could try and go too much into the connecting to the soul. Some people, will take too much plant medicine in an attempt, or in an attempt to get into the more spiritual side of their whole self. Or people may try to just simply go really deep into these esoteric practices, which again bring you outside of the animal and more deeply into the spiritual. But the danger is that if you overdose on it, whether it's literally overdosing on the plant medicine or overdosing on practices before you're truly grounded in your animal, right, in your body, then the danger is that you could ride that line of, if you go too far, there is a point of no return, at least for this body. And so it's that fine line and dance of how do we connect with our higher self, our spirit, while still maintaining grounded and embodied in the physical, and that union of those two. And it sounds like you really got to ride that edge during that experience.
I surfed that thing, and for 2.5 years after, because I had gut problems and the veil was very thin, and I really
You
got to
had what
experience
problems?
gut problems, stomach problems,
Interesting.
um, from because it expanded in my stomach, and I, you know, it really did my stomach under. So
Wow. I
I,
didn't.
yeah, it was a mess. So, I lost like 40 pounds of muscle mass that I had, and I was very frail. I was very malnourished. And I really got to understand the connection between your gut health and mental health. And
Yeah.
but again, the veil was thin, and um, I think that season of my life taught me to master the body in a new and different way because I came from the fitness industry where it was all about
Mm,
performance. And this time it
yeah.
was more about well-being. And to answer your question about, or you didn't bring it, there's a question, but you brought it up of like going too far into the spiritual
Mm.
understanding of God, um, or just spiritual connection in general, and,
Before being
and not
grounded.
grounded. Yeah. Um, I think either one or both of those, in my personal opinion, are veering from what God really is, because as you just said, God is all. And so if you can see
Mm,
God in the physical and God in the spiritual, you won't need to overdose on practices. I love that term,
mm.
to connect, because no matter where you're going to be, it, he, she is there. And can you see that?
Overdose on
That
practices. That's interesting. Yeah.
you said that just
I
now.
said that. I love that. Like when people repeat what we said and we're like, oh yeah, that's what I said. And then
Yeah.
before we go into the realm of angels, which I'm very excited to hear, the other thing that you mentioned, when we open up energetically, and I see this also at like festivals, too, where people are taking plant medicine, but outside of a specific ceremony, because I have my own experiences with specific plant medicine in specific reverent and intentional setting. And I also am an energy worker too myself, and I've worked with um it's not something that I advertise at all or speak about publicly often, um, because it just for me, requires so much respect and reverence. And when I have permission from a higher source, I have in the past worked with removing entities, foreign entities that didn't belong. And so I'm not going to go into all of that in this episode right now, but it is a whole conversation of like, we talk about what is God. Like we could get on do another episode of what is a demon?
Yeah.
What is a foreign entity? Where does it come from? What's it have to do with us? What's its purpose? How do we remove it? I mean, that's like, it's a whole hour-long conversation in and of itself, but it's important to just put that seed of the conversation out there that there are ways of talking about these things. And one of the dangers of overdosing on practices before grounded in the body, or medicine in the wrong, kind of contextual circumstance, is that it does open us up energetically. And when alcohol is called spirits. And so then it can leave people susceptible to, well, now there's an energetic opening for something to potentially come in. And for people who might be listening, who might feel like that's happened to them, the good thing is that just like you worked with somebody, and, I've worked on people before and had people, it's very important to be discerning about who you work with, because you're opening
Yes.
up your field to them. However, it doesn't have to be so scary. It can be simple, like your practitioner said to you. You don't even need to know exactly what it was. All you need to know is it's gone now, and so as much as we can go, oh my gosh, this is scary, it can also be simple, and we can release it and move on and grow it, like you have done and are doing.
Very true. I think, yeah, it's very important to be in the right space with that type of thing.
So
Um, yes,
angels.
moving on to the angels. So I know that this was an angel because every time, and I'm going to reference the Bible again, in the Bible there's a mention of an angel, or somebody sees an angel. It's always followed with, and then they were afraid.
Hmm.
And I'm even getting fucking teary eyed thinking about this.
I know. I'm like, whew, let that
Um,
land.
yeah. Yeah, because angels are warriors. They're not like cherubs. I mean, they're warriors, and so they're powerful beings, especially to be biblically accurate with it. Um, and anyway, I'm at this seminar, that's about personal development, but on one night there's an optional sermon, and that's where it's like more spiritual, and she teaches from the Bible and things of that
Hmm.
nature. And I've never really been a part of a group of people with that much
Hmm.
surrender and praise, and you could just say passion towards the subject. So I was really moved, and I was feeling it, and I was getting into it. And we were praying that angels would cover the four corners of the room.
Oh, chills.
And I shit you not, I started to I'm looking ahead, and I, in my peripheral vision, see the color of the corners of the room start to shift slowly, and I could not bring my eyeballs up at all. And I just got chills and was just literally like frozen. I've never been in a full freeze response before, but I was like, I'm pretty sure I stopped breathing for a second and could not look up during that entire prayer. And I was like, what the fuck? Did
Yeah.
that actually happen? And I'm talking to other people, and and I'm like, okay, wow, like that's, I don't know any other way to describe it as that. And I was talking with some friends, this was months later, and they're like, oh yeah, that's an angel. And they told me about the part where in the Bible it's always, and then they were afraid. And so it's like, yeah, they were there.
Hmm.
Um,
Very cool.
so while I didn't have a direct encounter with it, I been in the room as that happened. And
I mean,
yeah,
sounds pretty direct to me.
yeah. So,
Wow.
I say the angel and the demon bit, and I'm glad we went into it. And I also just bring that up because it's like you could say God is everything and it's all the stuff. And while that's true in a certain perspective, there are other entities that are out that's not just quantum physics and connecting this with everything and all.
Yeah, it's
And they're also
wild.
a part of it. But like, yeah,
Right.
yeah. We can dive deep down the rabbit hole of like mediumship and stuff. One of my best friends, or not best friends, but close friends, is a medium.
Mm,
And it's like, and I know quite a few people who have those, you know, powers, so to speak. And could they just be gifts of the spirit, as talked about before? I don't know.
yeah. Mind blown.
So,
Wow.
what does all this have to do with me or you or us listening in this conversation? Again, all of this is my perspective, and everybody, like you said, has their own perspective. So I could, I don't think we can actually know.
At the end of the
You
day.
know.
Yeah. Well, and I think, to bring it all together, we talk about God as everything and beyond everything. We talk about God, we talk we talk about angels and demons, and you mentioned parts work before. And so I wonder your perspective on how, just like how you were saying the stories from the Bible could be literal and also metaphorical. I wonder if even all of these, your perspective on, all of these different things that make up our seen and unseen reality, could they also be mirrors of parts of ourself?
100%. And that's why I am a relationship coach because, to talk about this stuff with everybody and everyday people,
Yeah,
and versus, when you're in a relationship, you really get to see your part. So you get to, it's a
yeah.
mirror very clearly in an intimate relationship. And also the best way to God and to connection, which is really what we're all seeking to source and to that being, is through love, is through
Mm,
service, is through expression, it's through that energy. And we can cultivate that and a lot of gifts through intimate relationship. And I just feel like
mm,
just like we're ungrounded from the earth because of our shoes and we're not stepping on Mother Earth
mm,
uh, and reaping its benefits, in a lot of ways, we're also disconnected from our hearts because of the relational trauma
mm,
um, that's around us, or lack of proper modeling, so to speak. And we've been really disconnected from what love is and relating to other humans in an intimate way. And I feel like that's probably, in my opinion, the biggest superpower we have as humans. And that's when we can unlock our fullest potential, is when we um, create a healthy dynamic and feed into another and are in a fully harmonious, intimate relationship. And that goes that's mirrored in the works of the Magdalene manuscript. And again, how Jesus got his powers through Tantra and his love for Mary and transcended death with her support. And if you choose to believe that or not, whatever.
yeah.
But
Well, the Magdalene manuscripts, again, that's a whole nother hour-long conversation that we could have. Um, but yeah, I love how we've brought this full circle all the way back to, the here and now. In this world, we are human beings and we're in relationship and we want connection. And that this is ultimately why, you're Kevin the heart guy, right? Like that's how you're known near and far. It's Kevin the heart guy. And so I think there's a perfect segue into just you just shared a little bit of what you do, but just if you want to elaborate any more on that and how people can connect with you or learn more about your work in the world.
yeah. You can connect with me, heartguy.com, or the heart guy on Instagram and TikTok. Um, and yeah, I mean, what I do, I help people with healing past relational wounds so that they can love themselves fully
Mm,
and respect themselves and actually fall into their core frequency or who they really are, not the masked version of themselves or anything. And that's parts work. Can you bring all parts of you on board and in harmony together and actually love all of you, not just the parts that's easy to love? and
Yeah.
fall into that. And then from that place, it's now bringing that into level two, so to speak, and go deeper into an intimate relationship and create safety in relationships again.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, and just from, we've been friends and colleagues for a little while now, and from what I know of your story and just witnessing you work and walk in the world, I really feel like you walk the walk. And um there's a lot of different coaches or people out there who have varying degrees of experience, and I really honor you and respect you so much, because not only do you teach these things and help your clients, but I literally have gotten to see you navigate with such integrity in your own life. And yeah, just so much respect for you.
Thank you.
So yeah, folks, you guys can check out Kevin the Heart Guy. And with that, I will thank you, Kevin, for sharing. I know we could go so much deeper. And to all of you listeners, thank you so much for listening. This is the What is God podcast. I'm Shifra Bloom, your hostess. You can find me at shifrabloom.com and check out our podcast, What is God. Please give us a like, subscribe if you enjoyed, and we will see you next time.